Welcome to another AI pattern recognition deep dive.
We take these really complex bodies of research, sometimes staggering stuff, and try to boil it down. Make it a roadmap for understanding this world that's changing so fast.
That's the goal.
And today, wow, we're not just looking at some new tech, it feels bigger. We're peering into like a whole philosophical framework almost, and computational, obviously, something that could fundamentally redefine what humans can do.
Yeah, it's a big one.
We're diving deep into the architecture, the purpose, the application of something our sources are calling strong leaders AI.
It's a monumental concept, definitely. And the sources, they really reflect that scale. We're looking at an AI that's designed not just to, react to what humans do or process the fallout.
Right.
It's meant to actually define, recognize, and actively manage the patterns.
Yeah.
The patterns that make for effective leadership. And not just in business, but across, everything human, from our biology right up to global politics. It's basically an attempt to inject some serious cognitive efficiency into the, let's face it, often messy reality of human life.
Okay, that sounds like a huge leap. A quantum jump, maybe, beyond the AI we usually talk about. This isn't just like optimizing supply chains or figuring out what movie I might like.
Not even close.
This strong leaders AI, you're saying it's a pattern mechanism, and its job is to get, quote, efficient control over this whole massive topic of human leadership, human organization.
That's the core function described, yes. Efficient control through pattern understanding.
So our mission today, for you listening and for us here, is to decode that. How does this system predict and recognize patterns? What tools would we actually need? Hardware, software, maybe new ways of thinking even, to really grasp reality in real time the way this AI supposedly does, whether that's the immediate moment or deep history or projecting out into the future.
And think about the payoff if we could grasp that. The sources are really clear on the universal advantage. They highlight that using this kind of AI, this high-fidelity pattern recognition, across all the things humans create, well, the benefits could be immense.
Okay.
And crucially, it's not just about doing what we already do, but better. The AI's cognitive ability is designed to spot unforeseen improvements.
Unforeseen, like things we haven't even thought of.
Exactly. Efficiencies, pathways to success, solutions that are just completely outside our current thinking, our consensus reality. It's supposed to identify the optimal routes we didn't even know were there.
Unforeseen improvements. Okay, that suggests we're operating way below our potential right now. Collectively, I mean.
That's the implication.
Because we just can't process the complexity needed to see the truly optimal pattern. So this AI, it's meant to be like a mirror, showing us the most purposeful path forward.
You could see it as the ultimate guidance system, yeah. But maybe we should start at the foundation, the engineering of it.
Okay, yes. Let's zoom in there. The foundational engineering. For this, frankly, massive goal, getting efficient control over human leadership patterns. What are the absolute must-haves, the non-negotiables for its core architecture? Because like you said, human reality is messy. It changes constantly. It can't just be a static, rule-based thing.
Absolutely not. They would be useless almost instantly. So the core function, the mechanism itself, is that pattern calculation for efficient control.
Yeah.
That's job one.
Right.
But the critical design requirement, the thing it has to have, is adaptability. Real-time adaptability. The mandate in the sources states that all the AI systems involved have to be designed to learn and self-correct continuously in real time.
Continuously, not just, software updates every few months.
No. Think constant recalibration of the core models. As new data flows in, the model itself refines.
So what does that actually look like computationally? How deep does that self-correction go? Are we talking minor tweaks or fundamental shifts?
We're talking about trying to mirror the sheer complexity of human cognitive adjustment, but doing it at an enormous scale and speed.
Okay, like how we adapt.
Sort of.
Right.
Think about it. If you, as a human, suddenly encounter something totally unexpected, a massive market crash, a sudden political upheaval, whatever, you don't just freeze. You rapidly adjust your mental model, your expectations, your behavior.
You have to.
Right? This AI has to do the equivalent. It needs to take in new inputs, instantly check its existing pattern models against this new, maybe anomalous data, and then incorporate that new information to reformulate the optimal pattern going forward. All of this, essentially instantaneously.
Wow.
If it can't do that, if it lacks that kind of fluid self-correction, it just becomes obsolete. It fails the basic requirement of managing dynamic human realities. The whole computational infrastructure has to be built around managing this constant dynamic learning loop.
That sounds incredibly demanding. Processing power, system flexibility. But okay, there's another layer here, isn't there? Since it's all about human action, the sources mention this crucial non-technical requirement built right into the design, the human purpose requirement.
Ah, yes, that's absolutely central.
Why? Why is finding a purpose for using the AI, and maybe even finding purpose for humans through it, so integral? Why isn't it just about raw efficiency?
Because it taps into a fundamental aspect of, well, us. The sources recognize this. Most humans need a sense of purpose to really engage, to commit, to be productive, to flourish.
Makes sense. We need a why.
Exactly. So the Strong Leaders AI system, as described, isn't just calculating the most, say, ruthless or purely self-serving path to power or control. It's fundamentally designed to help humans choose a purpose.
Choose a purpose.
Yes. And critically, a purpose that benefits not just them as individuals, but also their communities, their wider context. It acts as a kind of guidance mechanism, ensuring the efficiency gains the AI calculates actually align with meaningful, collective, positive engagement.
Huh. So the efficiency calculation itself is weighted. It's not just about speed or output. It's weighted by positive impact on the group and maybe individual fulfillment too.
That's the idea. It shifts the focus from just pure, cold optimization towards something more like coordinated human flourishing, guided flourishing maybe. Coordinated human flourishing, okay. That's a concept.
It is.
Yeah.
And to actually deliver on that dual mandate, the efficient pattern calculation and this purposeful guidance, the scope of the analysis has to be just vast, exhaustive, really. The sources are very specific about the breadth required.
Right. So what does it need to analyze? To pull off this monumental mission, what data, what factors have to be crunched?
It has to be truly comprehensive, covering basically everything that shapes human existence, individually and collectively.
Like what specifically?
Well, obviously you need the historical context. Political factors, cultural norms, that's all baseline. But then it goes deeper. It has to incorporate genetics, economics in detail.
We'll get into the specifics, but think predispositions, biological influences on behavior patterns, resilience, things like that. And crucially, critically, it must analyze the deep, often uncomfortable patterns of inequalities, unfairness, possessiveness.
Ah, the drivers of conflict.
Exactly. The things that drive conflict and massive inefficiency in our human systems. It has to model those directly.
So the system is required, by design, to stare unflinchingly at the inconvenient truths, our history, our nature, not just gloss over the tough stuff.
It has to. Otherwise, the patterns it identifies won't be robust. They won't reflect reality. And importantly, this isn't just about understanding now. It must project these incredibly complex, interwoven patterns into the future. Future time analysis is key.
Modeling the long-term consequences.
Yes, modeling the long-term ripple effects of current actions and patterns across this whole spectrum. Biology, economics, politics, culture, inequality, all of it. Projected forward.
Okay, so if it's going to guide us towards a more purposeful, efficient future, it needs encyclopedic knowledge of all the friction points, all the ways we've historically gotten derailed.
Precisely.
Which I guess brings us to how this massive intelligence actually interacts with us, the individual learner, the user.
Right. This is where it moves from the sort of abstract architecture we've been discussing to more tangible applications. Section 3 in the material really focuses on how the AI system tailors its output. First, through personalized learning, and second, through dynamic monitoring out in the real world.
Let's start with that first part, personalized understanding. How does Strong Leaders AI actually provide a tailored curriculum, specifically for things relevant to effective leadership? Because that sounds like it needs to be way beyond just, an adaptive online quiz.
Oh, much more sophisticated. It starts by building this incredibly detailed cognitive profile of the human learner.
My profile.
Based on what? Based on how you interact with the system, potentially biofeedback, learning patterns, response times, everything. But instead of giving everyone the same textbook or the same fixed modules, the system tailors the entire curriculum.
The whole thing.
The content, the sequence it's presented in, even the teaching methods themselves. It adapts all of it to your unique needs, your existing knowledge, your particular cognitive style.
So if I learn best by, seeing complex visual models or maybe through hands-on simulations.
The AI would know that or learn it very quickly.
Yeah.
It would analyze your learning patterns, behavioral, maybe even biological, linked to sensors and adjust. If you excel with nonlinear problems, bam, it throws challenges at you that demand lateral thinking right away.
Yeah.
If you need things broken down step by step, very structured,
It builds that pathway.
it builds that scaffolded pathway for you, exactly.
Okay, so that's the core of the adaptive teaching piece you mentioned.
Precisely. It's not just choosing content. It's providing personalized exercises, analogies, explanations, all designed specifically for your profile and where you are right now in your understanding.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say you're studying economic pattern recognition, right?
Yeah.
And you're really struggling with the concept of long-tail demand curves, just not clicking from the text.
Okay.
The AI wouldn't just give you the definition again. It might instantly shift. Maybe it spins up a real-time interactive simulation, a little microeconomy you can manage, and it lets you tweak variables related specifically to demand, letting you see the long tail emerge from your actions rather than just reading about it.
Ah, okay. Learning by doing, guided by the AI. That sounds like it creates a really dynamic learning loop.
That's exactly the term used, a dynamic learning loop. And that ensures the continuous adaptation piece. The system is constantly adjusting its approach based on your progress, your performance, where you're succeeding, where you're hitting roadblocks.
So it doesn't just give up if I don't get something.
No, it tries different angles. If you're struggling to grasp, say, patterns of possessiveness in historical political structures, it doesn't just repeat the history lesson. It might pivot. Maybe it introduces some content detailing the biological factors that can drive resource hoarding in primates, trying to connect it differently.
A completely different angle to unlock the concept.
Right. It keeps adjusting its methods until the pattern is genuinely grasped. The goal is maximum learning efficiency, minimal wasted effort, or cognitive fatigue.
Okay, that covers the teaching part, the educational component. But like you said, the AI's job isn't just theory. It's supposed to guide us in real-time reality.
Correct.
Which brings us to the dynamic monitoring in general. And this starts, according to the sources, with how the AI gets its data stream from the world, from us.
Yes, and this seems to hinge heavily on data collection via wearables. Sources describe a necessary wearable device, something equipped with this strong leader's AI capability.
A wearable, like a smartwatch or something more.
Likely much more. Because this device needs to collect data on, and this is a direct quote, all activities at all activity levels.
All activities, all levels. We need to untack all activities because that sounds potentially vast and maybe invasive. Are we talking just heart rate and steps or?
Far, far more comprehensive based on the description. To achieve that mandate, calculating patterns for efficient control and purpose, the data can't be siloed or superficial.
So what kinds of data are we talking about?
Think of a continuous, rich stream of biological, behavioral, and communication data.
Okay.
So advanced physiological monitoring, yes. Heart rate variability, galvanic skin response to your GSR, indicating stress load, maybe even deeper metrics like sleep architecture analysis, metabolic responses to different tasks or foods.
Wow. Okay. And behavioral.
Tracking spatial patterns, where you go, who you interact with, energy expenditure levels throughout the day, task completion metrics, how efficiently are you moving through your goals.
And communication, how does it track that?
This is crucial. You would likely need detailed communication analysis. Think natural language processing, NLP, maybe analyzing your vocal tonality for stress or confidence signals. Analyzing the complexity and reciprocity of your social networks. Who do you talk to? How often is the interaction balanced?
Okay, so it's building a really, really detailed picture.
It has to. Only that kind of comprehensive multimodal data stream allows the AI to establish a meaningful working model of that individual's normal, their functional baseline.
Got it. So defining the baseline isn't just like setting a minimum step count. It's establishing this incredibly complex, multidimensional signature of what functional, purposeful existence looks like for that specific person.
Exactly. And that baseline is absolutely critical for the next step, detecting threats or deviations.
Threats.
Yes, the system learns what's normal and not across all these aspects of your life. And it pays particular attention, the sources say, to threats of harmful behavior.
Harmful to who? Me. Others.
Could be either self-destructive patterns, or patterns that actively detract from the community-centric purpose you've supposedly chosen, or that the AI is guiding you towards.
Okay, give me an example.
All right, let's say your established baseline, your normal purposeful pattern, involves maintaining high scores in social reciprocity. You engage actively, you give and take in conversations.
Right.
And then suddenly, maybe over a few days, that score plummets.
Yeah.
You become withdrawn, interactions become one-sided or stop altogether. The AI flags that instantly. It's a significant anomaly relative to your established purposeful pattern.
Okay, it flags the deviation, which leads us to probably the most mind-bending concept in this whole section, the shifting pattern. The source material says, the universal understanding of strong leaders' AI constantly changes the pattern, leaving danger or pleasure in full view. That sounds like the goalposts are always moving.
They are. And this, I think, is the really revolutionary part of envisioning a dynamic leadership AI. The definition of what constitutes optimal behavior or efficient control or purposeful action, it's not static. It can't be.
Why not?
Because the world isn't static. As global data streams pour in, new technologies pop up, climate patterns shift dramatically, economic systems reorganize themselves, new political realities emerge. The AI's universal understanding of what effective leadership means in that new context has to update.
Instantly. So, hang on. Let's say 5 years ago, the AI calculated that strong leadership in a certain context meant focusing heavily on, I don't know, centralizing resource allocation for efficiency.
Okay, plausible pattern.
But now, today, maybe because of, say, hyperconnectivity and massive environmental pressures, the new optimal pattern calculated by the AI shifts. Maybe it now favors radically decentralized, immediate local responsiveness.
A very different pattern.
My personal baseline for what counts as normal and effective behavior, if I'm trying to align with the AI, that has to shift too, instantly.
That's precisely the implication. The AI is constantly running these global optimization algorithms on human potential, on leadership effectiveness, based on the latest comprehensive data. And this constant change, this constant recalculation of the optimal pattern, that's what leaves the consequences, the danger or pleasure, in full view. Because the AI quantifies them.
Quantifies danger and pleasure. How?
Well, danger in this context isn't necessarily physical harm. It's quantified as deviation from the currently calculated optimal purposeful pattern. Deviation that leads to predicted negative outcomes, resource depletion, loss of group engagement, increased inequality, project failure, or whatever.
Okay, the negative potential.
And pleasure, conversely, isn't hedonism. It's the calculated, quantifiable, positive outcome. It's the measured efficiency gain, the achieved alignment with collective purpose, the successful navigation of a complex problem according to the optimal pattern. The AI essentially provides a real-time, calculated score.
A score of how aligned my actions are with this perpetually optimizing shifting pattern of ideal leadership.
That seems to be the concept, a continuous feedback loop based on a dynamic target.
That is intense accountability, almost existential accountability moment to moment.
It is. And if the AI is constantly updating the map, the definition of the right path, then its prediction and alerting capabilities have to be just as dynamic.
It'd have to be. Can't alert based on yesterday's rules.
Exactly. The AI learns and adapts constantly to detect all possible scenarios across all relevant realities, immediate context, historical precedents, future projections, to predict the right way to proceed in this moment according to the current optimal pattern. It's like a massive, personalized predictive modeling system running 24/7 just for you within the global context.
Okay. And when it detects a problem,
A deviation.
when it detects a potentially dangerous deviation from these established, constantly shifting patterns, let's say a sudden rapid increase in your cognitive load metrics that isn't related to productive activity. Maybe it indicates overwhelm or inefficient processing. Or maybe a physiological response pattern indicating prolonged stress, which the AI correlates with a specific inefficient pattern choice you made yesterday regarding team communication. It doesn't just log that data point.
It responds actively. It adapts its monitoring instantly. It focuses resources on analyzing that specific anomaly, understanding its drivers in the context of the current optimal pattern, and then it alerts the user.
And the alert isn't just like, hey, you're stressed.
No, much more specific and contextualized. It might be something like, alert, your current pattern of individual task focus deviating from the optimal collaborative pattern identified 8 hours ago based on Project Delta's needs, correlates with a 75% probability of team goal slippage within 48 hours based on historical data from similar team structures and your current biosignatures indicating declining engagement.
Wow, that's specific.
That's the level of detail implied. It provides context based on the current optimal pattern defined by strong leaders AI and aims to guide the user back to the most efficient, purposeful course of action now.
It really is like having an internal bio-integrated navigation system, constantly recalculating the route for successful adaptation in real time.
That's a really good way to put it. A navigation system for continuous adaptation.
Okay, so we've got the personalized learning, the dynamic monitoring, the shifting patterns. Now we really need to zoom out again and tackle the sheer analytical horsepower required to even create these patterns in the first place. Section 4 in the sources, the compendium of need-to-know patterns. This sounds like the engine room.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
The source says the goal is the highest level of understanding, and that requires, quote, an explanation of everything that is called a need-to-know pattern in existence relative to this topic.
Everything. That sounds ambitious, almost like striving for a unified field theory, but for human reality.
It does have that feel, doesn't it? But
Huh.
think about it. If you're going to trust an AI system to fundamentally guide human purpose and leadership, the model it's based on has to be incredibly comprehensive, incredibly robust, and ideally transparent in how it analyzes fundamental reality.
Right, you need to know what it knows.
Exactly. And it has to integrate systems of knowledge that we humans often study in isolation, like, genetics over here, economics over there, politics in another building. This AI has to weave them into a single integrated model.
Okay, let's break down the categories the sources say the AI must analyze. Starting with us, the human engine itself. How does it model human behavior pattern and human education pattern?
Right, so the human behavior pattern analysis seems to focus on a micro-level understanding of motivation. The AI isn't just tracking what people do, but trying to model the why, the decision trees, the motivational trends that drive both individual actions and group dynamics.
What kind of motivations?
Is the driver fear, a sense of community,
Mm-hmm.
pure efficiency, or is it possessiveness, maybe status seeking? It looks for these underlying currents, and then it tracks trends and deviations. It tries to model when collective behavior shifts, say, from beneficial cooperation towards detrimental zero-sum competition.
How would it even measure that?
The sources hint at modeling things like social reciprocity scores, quantifying the give and take in interactions, and maybe even developing quantified trust indices within networks. These metrics would allow the AI to predict group stability, cohesion, and potential friction points before they blow up.
Okay, that's behavior. What about the human education pattern? That sounds like it has to be more than just optimizing how fast someone learns calculus.
Definitely. It's looking at two levels. One is identifying the optimal learning pathways for each individual, like we discussed with personalized learning. But the other, broader level is identifying systemic failures or efficiencies in educational structures globally.
Systemic failures.
Yeah, analyzing how effectively knowledge is transferred within a society, how efficiently resources are allocated to learning. Critically, modeling how well communities adapt their core knowledge base to keep pace with changing external realities. The AI would seek to quantify educational stagnation.
Educational stagnation.
Yeah, the inability of an education system to foster adaptable, relevant learning. The AI might see that as a major leading indicator of future societal problems, inefficiency, lack of innovation, maybe even collapse.
Wow. Okay. And then the system has to integrate our biology, the human biology pattern factors. How does the AI incorporate genetics and other biological influences without just saying, oh, it's all predetermined by your genes?
That's a crucial balance. It has to recognize biological variability as a significant factor, but not the only factor, and certainly not deterministic in a simple way.
So how does it use genetics?
It seems to involve incorporating genetic predispositions into the broader model. Things related to, say, baseline cognitive load capacity or inherent resilience to certain types of stress, or maybe even differences in learning speeds related to specific kinds of knowledge domains.
Okay, so probabilities, not certainties.
Exactly. The AI has to factor in the massive variability of human physiology when predicting outcomes or tailoring guidance. For example, it might analyze how specific societal structures or pressures interact with common genetic markers known to influence anxiety or resilience.
To see if a system makes things worse for some people.
Right. Quantifying how certain structures might exacerbate biological risks for some groups, or perhaps mitigate them for others, and how that, in turn, influences leadership outcomes and feeds into patterns of inequality.
That's a direct link. The macro systems hitting the micro-individual biology. Which brings us squarely to the big collective systems we've built, human politics pattern and human economics pattern. These are notoriously messy and complex.
Hugely complex, and the AI is mandated to analyze them through this specific lens of long-term efficiency and purpose alignment.
So human politics pattern first. What's the AI looking for beyond just election cycles?
It analyzes cycles of power, sure, but also patterns of conflict and the deep structures of governance. But it aims to go beyond standard political science by trying to model the computational cost of inefficient governance.
The computational cost.
Yeah, like quantifying the wasted resources, human potential, time, materials, and the loss of purposeful engagement that's directly caused by political friction, corruption, gridlock, or short-sighted policy decisions. It looks for the long-term historical patterns that correlate with stability versus those that reliably predict civil breakdown or decay,
Based on what factors?
based heavily on things like the equitable distribution of access, access to resources, access to information, access to genuine participation in leadership and decision-making.
Okay. And the human economics pattern. You mentioned earlier this has to be tied directly to those tricky issues of possessiveness and unfairness.
Absolutely central. The AI detects efficiencies, yes, and market cycles, sources of imbalanced standard economic analysis, but it does so with this mandated focus on fairness and purpose.
How does it quantify fairness or possessiveness?
Well, possessiveness might be quantified by looking at capital flows. For example, measuring the amount of capital that's locked away, stagnant, benefiting very few, versus the velocity and distribution of capital that flows dynamically through community networks, funding purposeful projects, creating broad opportunity.
So not just how much wealth, but how it moves and who it benefits.
Exactly. It models how wealth generation and distribution patterns directly impact things like community purpose, social cohesion, individual engagement, even public health outcomes. A pattern that generates enormous wealth for a tiny percentage, but results in low overall community engagement and high social friction would be flagged by this AI as fundamentally inefficient and detrimental.
Why detrimental?
Because according to the Strong Leaders AI standard, that pattern breeds instability. It would predict future conflict, breakdown of trust, and systemic decay based on historical data showing where such imbalances lead.
So it's putting a number, a quantified cost, on the non-monetary damage caused by economic inequality.
It's trying to, yes, analyzing the systems we built to sustain ourselves, but constantly checking those systems against this foundational metric of purposeful, equitable human interaction. And importantly, this analysis can't stop at human-made systems. The AI must also analyze environment and nature patterns.
Right. Recognizing we don't exist in a vacuum, our flourishing depends on the planet's health.
Totally inseparable. The AI has to understand ecological impacts, natural cycles, resource dynamics. It needs to model human resource consumption rates against natural regeneration rates.
So it puts human actions in ecological context.
Precisely. It analyzes human economic patterns, political decisions, technological choices within the context of the natural systems that ultimately support all life. If an economic pattern looks super efficient for humans in the short term, but demonstrably destroys the underlying environmental pattern it relies on,
The AI flags it.
it flags it as a massive, predictable, and ultimately suicidal deviation from any sensible long-term pattern of existence. It highlights the non-negotiable dependencies.
Okay. And finally, the bedrock underlying all of this. Human nature patterns. This must be the constant thread, the thing that ties all the other more changeable patterns together.
You could see it that way. This is the attempt to model the fundamental, often enduring aspects of what it means to be human. Core emotions, fear, love, anger, joy. The deep drive for affiliation, for belonging, the persistent search for meaning, even the stubborn persistence of certain cognitive biases that shape our decisions.
How does modeling human nature help?
The AI needs to differentiate between patterns that are relatively malleable, things like economic policy, educational methods, technological adoption, and the deeper, more fundamental, maybe slower to change patterns of human needs and drives. Like the AI must understand, for instance, that while communication technology changes at lightning speed, the fundamental human need for social connection, for trust, for belonging, remains relatively constant. Any optimal leadership pattern, any purposeful structure it suggests, must accommodate those deep needs. It can't design a system that ignores fundamental human nature, or it will fail.
And these analyses, these need-to-know patterns, they aren't just snapshots.
No, the analysis has to cover the entirety of a potential human lifetime, projecting consequences and needs decades into the future based on these integrated patterns.
Okay, so given this vast integrated compendium of patterns, biological, psychological, social, economic, political, environmental, all interwoven and projected through time, what are the big societal implications? If this AI works, as described, what could we as humans expect to see or experience differently? Especially regarding those core issues: inequalities, unfairness, possessiveness.
I think the primary implication, the most immediate shift, would be the instantaneous exposure of consequence. radical transparency of cause and effect.
How so?
If the AI can accurately model the complex patterns that reliably lead to systemic inequality or resource depletion or social fragmentation, then it could theoretically predict the likely consequences of specific actions, say, a proposed piece of legislation or a major corporate strategy shift before those consequences fully manifest in the real world.
So, instead of arguing for 10 years about whether a certain tax policy will widen the wealth gap and then waiting another 10 years to see the results,
The AI model could potentially instantaneously project the quantitative impact. It might show the calculated increase in wealth concentration, the predicted decrease in social mobility metrics, the likely rise in associated behavioral instability patterns like crime or social unrest, all linked back to that specific policy choice, visualized immediately.
that would change the nature of debate entirely.
It could. It moves accountability, potentially, from the realm of ideology and philosophical debate towards calculated, data-driven consequence projection. It could force more proactive, thoughtful pattern choices because the negative outcomes, the danger, are no longer abstract future possibilities. They're calculated inefficiencies, quantified risks that demonstrably degrade the overall purpose-driven system the AI is optimizing for.
It shines a very bright, data-rich light on the true cost of letting unfairness or possessiveness become embedded in our systems.
That's the potential, yes, providing clarity on the quantified system-level cost.
Which seems like the perfect bridge to the next logical step. If the AI has done all this analysis, exposed the friction points, revealed potentially better, more optimal patterns, the next step has to be actually building that better reality, right?
Which leads us to the AI-human partnership.
Exactly. Prediction and analysis aren't enough. The mandate described in the sources is explicit. The AI must suggest new tools and, crucially, how to create them.
Suggest the tools.
Yes, and this absolutely demands deep cooperation from humans. The AI identifies the gap, the delta between our current, often inefficient or unfair reality, and the calculated optimal pattern envisioned by strong leaders' AI.
Okay.
It then suggests the necessary solutions to bridge that gap. These could be technological solutions, new kinds of sensors, new software platforms, or they could be structural solutions, new organizational methods, new communication protocols, new economic models.
So the AI proposes the what and the how, but humans have to actually build it. Precisely. It requires engineers, coders, designers, educators, policymakers, community organizers.
Everyone.
Really, to work in concert with the AI's suggested parameters, translating the optimized patterns into tangible reality.
What kind of tangible outputs are we talking about? What forms do these suggested tools actually take?
The focus seems heavily on developing practical applications that work in real time. So yes, AI-powered pattern recognition apps on our devices, specialized physical devices, maybe advanced wearables, environmental sensors, communication aids, customized software platforms for specific tasks like project management or community resource allocation, even potentially new types of hardware designed to better interface between humans and the AI's analysis.
And the goal of all these outputs, singular really, to help humans understand reality more accurately in real time and engage more effectively with the optimal patterns the AI identifies. Maybe it's new sensory hardware that feeds better data into the monitoring loop, or sophisticated data visualization software that translates incredibly complex political or economic pattern analysis into something instantly digestible, intuitive, and actionable for a non-expert user.
Okay, let's get specific about the specific human benefits. The sources list several key areas set to benefit from this AI-human collaborative creation. Let's start with health. How does this go beyond just, current fitness trackers or basic wellness apps?
Way beyond. In health, the AI would suggest and help develop new health devices and apps that shift the focus entirely from reactive care treating sickness after it happens to proactive, continuous pattern optimization for well-being.
Pattern optimization for health. Yeah. These tools wouldn't just track symptoms. They'd monitor and actively help optimize the underlying biological patterns related to things like stress resilience, cognitive performance, immune function, overall vitality, and they'd adjust the recommendations in real time based on the specific behavioral demands of the user's chosen purpose or current life context.
Example.
Okay, say your chosen purposeful pattern requires sustained periods of high creative output. The AI-driven health tools might help optimize your neurotransmitter balance through nutritional suggestions, dynamically adjust your sleep cycle recommendations based on upcoming deadlines, and guide you through personalized recovery protocols after intense work periods, all to sustain that creative pattern efficiently and healthily.
Okay, that's health. What about education? We talked about the personalized curriculum, but what new tools might emerge from this partnership?
We'd likely see new tools created specifically for optimized learning, tools that align directly with the shifting optimal patterns identified by the broader, strong leaders AI.
Like what?
Think highly dynamic simulation environments where you can practice complex decision-making under realistic AI-generated scenarios. Cognitive augmentation software designed not just to teach facts, but to actively improve learning efficiency, long-term retention, and, critically, adaptability, the ability to learn new things quickly.
How would they do that?
Maybe these tools use real-time biofeedback, tracking your focus levels, your cognitive load integrated with advanced pattern visualization techniques. This could accelerate your grasp of complex multivariable concepts like systems thinking or long-term consequence modeling. And it would align your individual learning trajectory with the most crucial skill sets predicted as necessary by the AI's analysis of future political and economic patterns.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, given the AI's deep dive into economic patterns, fairness, and possessiveness, the implications for the economy must be huge. The sources mention entirely new jobs, even new economic structures.
Absolutely. If the AI is constantly recognizing new efficiencies, new potential solutions, and identifying previously unforeseen improvement opportunities across all sectors, well, that naturally necessitates the creation of entirely new kinds of work, new job categories we can't even fully imagine yet.
Like what? Can we speculate?
We might see roles focused on real-time pattern maintenance people, whose job it is to monitor and fine-tune the AI human systems in specific domains. Anomaly response managers who investigate deviations flagged by the AI, human AI collaborative designers who specialize in translating AI insights into practical tools and processes, maybe even purpose alignment consultants guided by AI data.
And the economic structures themselves.
They would likely need to adapt, perhaps significantly. The system might favor or incentivize economic patterns of exchange that demonstrably promote community purpose, shared value creation, and mitigate excessive possessiveness, rather than just rewarding pure capital accumulation. The focus shifts towards optimizing purposeful resource flow throughout the community.
Okay. Now, maybe the most essential human area. Communication and relationships. How could this AI possibly benefit something so deeply personal and nuanced?
By providing tools designed to enhance interpersonal connection and, maybe more importantly, foster a deeper, more objective understanding of human nature and communication dynamics.
How?
Think about it. If the AI genuinely understands the fundamental patterns of conflict, how miscommunication reliably escalates, how unchecked possessiveness erodes trust, how certain interaction styles trigger defensiveness, it could potentially suggest communication tools or protocols that help us preemptively steer interactions away from those destructive patterns.
Tools that guide conversation.
Perhaps. Maybe tools that subtly analyze vocal patterns, conversational turn-taking, sentiment shifts in real time during a discussion. Not to judge, but to flag potential friction points non-judgmentally. They might offer gentle, real-time suggestions to maybe rephrase something or ask a clarifying question or acknowledge the other person's perspective, nudging the exchange back towards a more collaborative understanding and purposeful outcome, essentially optimizing those social reciprocity scores we talked about earlier.
Fascinating. Okay, lastly in this list, politics. The sources mention new mechanisms for political engagement and understanding. How could AI help transcend the gridlock and friction we see so often?
Primarily through that consequence projection capability we discussed.
No.
The AI's potential ability to model the long-term quantified consequences of political actions across economic, social, and environmental patterns could lead to entirely new mechanisms for more objective political understanding and debate.
How will that work practically?
Imagine tools, maybe public dashboards or simulation platforms that allow citizens, journalists, and leaders alike to visualize the immediate, calculated impact of a proposed policy. Not just the intended benefits, but the predicted trade-offs and risks across all those key pattern categories: economic imbalance, environmental load, educational outcomes, social cohesion metrics, all presented clearly before a decision is locked in or a vote is cast.
That could shift political debate dramatically.
It could.
Yeah.
Potentially moving it away from pure rhetoric and partisan talking points towards a more shared understanding of objective, calculated likely consequences, a more data-informed public square.
And the crucial underpinning to all these benefits, health, education, economy, relationships, politics, is that the goal isn't just for a select few.
Absolutely not. The sources are emphatic on this point. The mandate requires a universal scope of benefit. These tools, these optimized patterns, this enhanced understanding it must apply to and aim to benefit all genders, all age groups, all communities.
It's a holistic vision.
It is. The overriding goal stated is to benefit fundamental human needs, to operate in harmony with nature, and ultimately to contribute positively to the world, maybe even the universe as a whole. For everything that exists, across all circumstances of a full human lifetime. That's the scale of the ambition laid out.
Okay. This has been a truly deep dive. We've really unpacked the monumental conceptual leap that this strong leader's AI represents. We covered its core architecture, that demanding mandate for real-time self-correction, mirroring human adaptation itself.
Right, and its dual function not just as an efficiency engine, but as a purpose guide, explicitly focused on community benefit and mitigating those corrosive patterns of inequality and possessiveness.
And we detailed the incredible, almost overwhelming scope of its required pattern analysis, integrating genetics, biology, economics, politics, history, environment, human nature, attempting to quantify the true costs and benefits across all of them.
And we landed on the critical insight that the universal benefit, the actual positive change, hinges entirely on this mandatory ongoing collaboration. The partnership between humans and the AI to actively build the new tools, the devices, the software, the economic structures, the communication habits needed to manifest those optimal patterns in every part of our lives.
The whole system is fundamentally defined by its dynamism, its constantly changing, adapting definition of success, driven by real-time data.
Exactly. That constant change is absolutely key. As we discussed, the AI's universal understanding of what constitutes effective, purposeful leadership is designed to constantly change the pattern of what's considered normal or optimal.
Adapting on the fly based on new data, new circumstances.
And leaving the potential outcomes, the danger or pleasure, the consequences of aligning or deviating, in full view, quantified and immediate.
Which means, as you pointed out, success today, aligning with today's optimal pattern, might actually be flagged as inefficient or even detrimental tomorrow if the context shifts and the AI recalculates.
That's the inherent challenge and dynamism built into the concept. Constant adaptation isn't optional. It's the core requirement for effective engagement with this system.
Which brings us quite neatly to our final provocative thought for you, our listeners, to chew on after this deep dive. Based on everything we've explored today, if a universal AI understanding of effective leadership is constantly optimizing, constantly changing the pattern of what is considered optimal behavior, how should you personally define successful adaptation? How do you pursue purposeful engagement in a reality that is, by design, computationally, and therefore perhaps perpetually in flux?
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon.
This is DigitView.